Hi, Nigel here with the Drivewire, and I have the 2022 Toyota GR Supra 2-litre. Now, we did test the 6-cylinder version a few weeks ago. This one gives up 127 horsepower to that car, but it's still a very pretty and very quick little car, but it does cost significantly less. So which one would you choose? So this particular 2-litre does lack some gear that the 3.06 gets. It doesn't get the adaptive sport differential or adaptive sports suspension. But other than that, these cars are fairly similar except for outright go. So at the front, the 4-piston brakes are replaced by 1-piston units. These wheels are 1 inch smaller, so they're 18s instead of 19s, but the tire size remains pretty similar. These are 255/40s on the front, 275/40s on the rear. And I think they fill out the fenders pretty well anyway, so the car still looks pretty damn good. So apart from those few small things, the cars are pretty much cosmetically identical. So if you just want to look really cool but not spend as much money, then get the 2.0. Basically, it's same show, less go. So to make it easier to compare these two cars, put together a little cheat sheet for you. I'm going to put it on the screen right now. All right, so based on these numbers, the 2-litre is clearly cheaper, $8,350 to be exact. It's also lighter by 219 pounds and slightly more economical, but it does have that deficit of 127 horsepower, and it also gets to 60 in approximately a second slower. This one does around 4.7 versus 3.8 for the 3.06, and of course at higher speeds that extra shove is something you'll miss. So under the hood you get a 2.0 4-cylinder turbocharged engine from BMW. Yes, I know, and Toyota just slaps a badge on the top there. It's got 255 horsepower, 295 foot-pounds of torque, which is a lot of torque from a little 4-cylinder, driven through a very good 8-speed automatic. However, there are rumors that a 6-speed might be on the way. That might turn the reasoning more towards getting this one if this was offered with a 6-speed transmission. I hope so. So in the back you get a decent amount of trunk space. These really wide haunches make getting wider objects in here, but there's a decent amount of room. It's fairly deep, and of course it's a hatchback. This is a fiddly thing to get off. You got to play origami to get that removed out from the trunk. And then the most irritating thing is there's no trunk release anywhere here or on the lid. You have to use the key, or you have to go inside the car and open it, and then by the time you get back outside the car, the security system has said no, you can't go in there, and has locked the car again. So yeah, very irritating. I don't know why that isn't a thing. And the good news is you can actually poke through longer items. Obviously there's no back seats because there's a gap that goes straight through to the front of the car, like this. Hi. And then the benefit is, of course, you can't get locked in the trunk by a would-be kidnapper. Now I gotta get out of here. So inside is pretty much classic BMW, except for this Toyota badge. Everything works as it should. Materials quality is pretty decent. I don't like the shifter. It feels plasticky. Really, that's the only downside to the car. Seats are super comfortable, but they are manually adjusted, as I mentioned earlier. So it is a little trickier to get a perfect position. I'm in a perfect position for the pedals here, but I'm finding that the backrest, if I move it 1 notch back, is a little bit too far away, and this is just a tad too close. So electric gives you just a little bit of a finer adjustment. Now there are some electric adjustments here. There's a button on the left-hand side which will move the bolsters in here. It'll squeeze you quite tightly and hold you in place, and then one below it is a lumbar support. Anyway, what we're going to do with this car is compare how it drives with the 3.0 turbo. And we're going to take it on a tight, twisty little section of road. The same one, in fact, that I used for the GR86. So it's tight, twisty, technical. Let's see how this 2.0 turbo does on that particular stretch of road. First thing we do is press the sport button. That automatically disengages the stop start, which is very helpful. Move the shifter into D1 and off we go. Now this car is lighter than the 3.0 and it accelerates pretty well, but it just doesn't give you that thump in the back that you get from the 3.0 turbo. But you do have to plan a little bit more ahead when you pass people, especially when there's not too much space to do so on two-lane roads. But get it up to speed, and it goes. What you do notice in the upper reaches is the torque kicks in. 295 foot-pounds of torque is pretty impressive. Obviously, exhaust doesn't sound nearly as good, but it does crackle and it does pop. And because the tires are the same size as the 3.0, it's just smaller wheels by 1 inch, it grips. I mean, Michelin Pilot Sports, what do you expect? Steering's really good too, pretty direct. Traction control kicking in there a little bit. But let's see how this does in tighter, twistier turns. But it feels pretty poised. Tight, twisty right-hander here. Got to hold on the brakes a little bit. This you got to slow down for. Huge hump. Woof. It's fun, but I don't know if it's as much fun as the GR86. I never thought I would say that. I love the 3.0. The 3.0 is just a little bit too quick for this section of road. The exhaust sounds pretty good for a 4-cylinder. Brakes are good too. You can feel struggling for grip a little bit. It's just not quite as point and squirty as the GR86. But it's definitely zippy on these tighter roads. Transmission holds its gears, keeps the revs high. It doesn't really need to though. With this much torque, it doesn't really need to do that. The GR86 revs really high, but doesn't have a whole lot of torque. It's got enough for it to be fun. This rotates really well too. I felt the back just doing a little bit of a slip there. Traction control kicked in. This extra super tight left-hander with a hump. Whoa! This is a full hairpin switchback here. Too much power and you can feel the tail just getting a little unsettled. This doesn't have the adjustable damper setup that the 3-liter has, but it's coping with this pretty well. Alright, so while we've got caught behind somebody here, let me tell you about the fuel economy, which is actually pretty good. This is a really economical car. If you don't drive it in sport mode, it's been really economical so far. So I'm 3 days in, and I haven't had to put any gas in it yet, which is somewhat of a record for me. And then mash your foot. It's definitely not as quick. I'm already missing the acceleration of the 3.0. But having said that, it's a pretty damn good engine, and it's probably producing more than the 255 horsepower that's advertised. The one thing that is a problem is visibility at the 3/4. So the camera doesn't help you out when you're making a left turn and the road's going sort of halfway back up that way, and it's tough to see anything. Now, I said it before, the 3.0 is a little jiggly. It's a short wheelbase. For some reason, I feel like it's more jiggly than the GR86 was over this same section. Maybe the suspension's a little harder, a little firmer. Yeah, it's definitely got enough power that you can get this tail wagging if you really wanted to. If I turn the traction control off, not a great idea on these public roads. But I think the biggest question about this car is, you know, a $42,000 base price versus a $30,000 GR86. If you want fun, I'll be honest, the GR86 is a much cheaper way of keeping a stupid grin on your face. I love that little car. Good news is, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to get the BRZ. It's twin, only this time it's going to be a stick shift, so keep an eye out for that one. Right, I'm just pulling over here and see how this thing launches. I'm going to keep the traction control on because I'm on a regular road, but let's just see. We're in sport mode, that's off. If we mash the throttle, let's see what happens. So, not too bad. Feels quick, doesn't feel fast. 0 to 60 takes around 4.7, 4.8 seconds. It isn't bad. The 3.0 takes 3.8, but with 382 horsepower versus 255 horsepower, you got a lot more top end in the 3.0. It's an interesting thing to calculate. Do I want the 2 or the 3? Do I want to save some money, or do I do something else? All right, so what do we think? Well, the 2.0 is a great little car. It's got plenty of performance for most people. It does lack power in the upper reaches. Now, you could do a stage 1 reflash and get close to 300 horsepower out of this, but you're still paying $42,000 for a car that's up against, you know, things like a Mustang and stuff that's got a lot more horsepower. Yes, it's a very pretty car, and it does turn heads. But you know what I would do? I'd get myself a GR86 for $32,000 or so, 6-speed stick, and save the rest for gas. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe. We'll catch you next time.